So Arman Sarukian is actually back to work. This guy only took 17 months for him to clock back into the UFC octagon. But now he's fighting Dan Hooker at UFC Qatar. And as someone who has been heavily critical of Arman Sarukian for the past couple of months, you know, thank you, Sarukian, for finally accepting a fight and getting back into the UFC cage because you weren't getting the next title shot, and I'm glad that you finally are accepting that, so you're fighting Dan Hooker instead. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think your fans are some of the worst people online because your fans are not really your fans. Your fans are just secret Makachev and Habib fans that want to see Ilya Taporia lose. All right, I will never let that go. But I gotta respect Arman Saruki for taking this fight. And I'm going to do so by picking him to absolutely smoke Dan Hooker within the first two rounds. I think this fight's going to play out very similarly to when Arman Sarukian fought Joel Alvarez because Sarukian's very good at holding top control mount or just ground and pound. He's been working on his submissions, albeit against like 50-year-olds like Benson Henderson, but still, Sarukian's starting to develop his submission game. He's going to be able to put himself in more dominant positions than Matej Gamrot, who's the last guy Dan Hooker fought. Like Matej Gamrot, I think, is a better pure wrestler in terms of single and double legs, but Gamrot cannot really finish you if he takes you to the ground. Gamrot's whole game plan is just shoot takedowns nonstop and then try to control you for like a round or so. All right. That's typically how a Matej Gamrot fight goes. Whereas if Arman Sarukian takes you down, even though he's not as good in the wrestling, in my opinion, he's still very good and he has a lot more options than Matej Gamrot. And I'm not gonna lie, I watched Matej Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. I don't think Dan Hooker won that fight. All right, I thought Matej Gamrot won rounds 1 and 3 because he was able to rock Dan Hooker multiple times, dropped him I think once or twice, and sure you could say Dan Hooker also had his getbacks, but still it was like it was close, but you could just see Gamrot doing slightly more on the feet, right? And if Gamrot's doing slightly more than you on the feet, like Tsurukian, maybe he's not like outlanding Gamrot, but he has more devastating thud, and he could potentially just drop you more and more times, right? The only way I could see Dan Hooker winning this fight is if he somehow manages to survive the first two rounds by just scurrying around like a cockroach, right? I don't think Sarukian is going to let Dan Hooker get past the second round. But if it does, all right, I can see Dan Hooker mounting a 48-47 robbery decision comeback because that's typically how a Dan Hooker fight goes. And hey, if Dan Hooker wins via robbery decision, I'm not going to be mad about it because Sarukian should have finished him within the first two rounds. So I'm going to go with Sarukian to win this, like, by round two, ground and pound submission, ground and pound TKO. I'm sorry. Again, this could be similar to the Joel Alvarez fight. If you guys haven't watched that, basically Saruki just took him down every time and then cut him up with some nasty ground and pound, right? Dan Hooker, he has a lot of scar tissue. He cuts up very easily. He can get dropped as well. So there's an option where he can just get ground and pound TKO'd after like Sarukian drops him on the feet. So yeah, I think Sarukian just has more ways to win this fight. But low key, I will be rooting for Dan Hooker, not because I dislike Sarukian that much anymore. It's more of the fact that if Dan Hooker somehow manages to win this fight, that would be absolutely hilarious. But realistically, I'm gonna say that Sarukian wins this fight. Now, moving on to the other major announcement for UFC Qatar. Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, is taking on one of my least favorite fighters on the roster, Ian Machado Garry. Right? Now, unlike the main event, and I see a lot of people picking Ian Garry in this fight. I don't think Ian Gary's gonna win this fight. Now, Is this me saying this because I despise Ian Gary and I have so much bias against Ian Machado Gary? Probably. But Bilal Muhammad, I think, has the tools to beat him, right? I know everyone's like talking about, oh, Machado Gary's grappling so good against the fence. I don't think Bilal Muhammad's gonna let him get to the fence, right? I know Bilal Muhammad, like, he didn't show it much in the JDM fight, but Bilal Muhammad can shoot takedowns out in the open, which is how Shavkat Rakhmonov was able to secure the later rounds of their fight. And also, I know a lot of people are gonna bring up the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight for Ian Gary. Shavkat Rakhmonov, as much as I love the Glazer, I am a D1 Shavkat Glazer. I don't think his pure wrestling takedowns are as good as Bilal Muhammad's. All right, Shavkat's a guy who overwhelms you in the clinch. All right, he is a clinch bully, and because Ian Machado Gary is coming from a judo background, right, it don't work that well. And hindsight, I should have seen that coming. I was expecting Shavkat to kind of just bully him a lot more, but it didn't happen. Unfortunately, I wanted to see Ian Gary get slumped out cold. Uh, but Shavkat, after realizing his clinch game isn't gonna work, he used his back pocket wrestling to take down Ian Gary in the fourth round and win by just beating the crap out of him in the fourth round. Now, like, you could say that, oh, it's because Shavkat got a takedown, like, in the fourth round, and Ian Gary wasn't expecting it. But at the same time, I don't think Ian Gary's uh double A takedown defense is as good as people think. Because again, Shavkat Rakhmonov uses it very, very sparingly. And even though Bilal Muhammad, you kind of know what when it's coming, like, he's a lot better at getting those types of traditional wrestling takedowns than Shavkat Rakhmonov. So I think, like, if Ian Gary, he's probably gonna try to back himself up to the fence, just fucking throwing pitter patter shit. And then Bilal Muhammad, he's gonna slowly pressure. The difference I see here is Bilal Muhammad, if he gets Ian Gary to the fence, he's going to do everything to get him off the cage. Because Shavkat Rakhmonov's mistake, I believe, in that fight was hitting Ian Gary to the cage. All right. Bilal Muhammad will do a very good job of just getting him off the cage and then onto the mat. And if Ian Gary's on his mat, all right, like, I'm sorry, like, your jujitsu ain't working, little bro. All right. Bilal Muhammad, like, he's not gonna get a ground and pound finish or anything like that. But still, you're not, like, subbing Bilal Muhammad. Like, you're just not doing that. So I'm gonna say that Bilal Muhammad, maybe he gets outstruck in the first round, but by rounds 2 and 3, I think he's gonna start to pick it up. Maybe even towards the end of the first round, because that's typically how Bilal Muhammad plays things out. The first round kind of just like strikes with you a lot more, and then like towards the end of the round, he shoots the takedown for to secure the round, I guess. And even if Bilal Muhammad tries to strike with Ian Gary on the feet, I don't think he has a bad shot. Like, I know that Ian Gary is very elusive on the feet, and he's very good. He kind of outclassed Carlos Prates on the feet, but still, is Ian Gary really gonna throw anything? That Bilal Muhammad has to be scared of, right? Like, ADM threw some nasty combinations, all right? Ian Gary's not doing that. Ian Gary's just gonna flick the jab over and over to set up a high kick or something like that, all right? There's nothing like dangerous, like seriously dangerous, coming from Ian Gary's side. At least when he's fighting Bilal Muhammad. So I'm gonna pick Bilal Muhammad to win this fight. 30-27, 29-28. Will I be coping if Ian Gary wins this fight? Because I do think Ian Gary has a very realistic chance. Yes, I will be coping incredibly hard. I will still campaign for a Shavkat Rakhmonov title shot over Ian Gary. Even though if Ian Gary wins this fight, he could be the next up for the welterweight title. But I pray that that doesn't happen. So this is a mixture of me being biased against Ian Gary, but at the same time, I think I'm being kind of objective about Bilal Muhammad's skill set. So I'm gonna pick Bilal Muhammad to win this fight. Please win this fight, Bilal Muhammad. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can get this channel monetized. But other than that, though, leave a comment down below what you guys think about the main and co-main event for UFC Qatar. I'm actually hyped for this. We didn't get the matchup that we wanted necessarily, like Sean Brady versus Ian Gary. Those guys have been jawing at each other back and forth, and I would have picked Sean Brady to ragdoll Ian Gary's ass any day of the week. We also didn't get Arman Sarukian versus a Justin Gaethje or a Paddy Pimblett. But hey, it could have been worse. All right, I'll take Arman Sarukian fighting Dan Hooker. It's a sick fight, and I'll take Bilal Muhammad versus Ian Gary. A winner of this, if it's Ian Gary, will get a title shot, and I will be coping infuriatingly hard. But I'm praying it doesn't happen. And matchup wise, I think it's a very nice thing for the welterweight division. So yeah, leave a comment down below what you guys think. And other than that, I will probably see you guys later. Peace.